It's a wet track. It is a wet race in prospect for our second ADAC GT Masters contest of the weekend here at Zandvoort. Welcome to what promises to be a fascinating hour, but it is going to start with 2 formation laps, and therefore the race duration you can anticipate to be changed accordingly. Yesterday, because we had a drive shaft go on the Land Motorsport number 2 Audi, we had an extra formation lap and we were down therefore to 57 minutes with the regulation lap at the end, and confirmation just comes that we will have the same today. So 2 formation laps, because this is the first wet running the teams have had all weekend. Friday was gloriously hot and sunny. Yesterday, certainly for the GT element of the day, was dry and sunny and a bit breezy, but we had a few spots of rain a few minutes ago in the earlier TCR touring car race, and now heavy rain has been falling. The circuit, as you can see, is wet, and wet tyres on the cars as we get set for the second race of the weekend. For the ADAC GT Masters. David Addison trackside. So too are some soggy fans who thought they were coming for a day in the sun, but the forecast has been threatening rain. It's arrived later than anticipated, but it has arrived. You can see now as the grid is being cleared exactly what the state of the road is. It is very greasy indeed. We've had races so far, 2 at Ossersleben, 2 at the Lausitzring, 2 at the Red Bull Ring before here this weekend. We've had 6 different winners out of the first 6 races. Yesterday we had another different winning crew, but including one driver who'd already had a victory, because with Daniel Kalvitz being injured in testing at Spa and therefore having to miss next week's 24-hour race, Renger van der Zande, the Dutch driver, brought in to join Jules Gounod in the 77 Corvette. They had a win yesterday, so it's a different winning combination. We had 7 different winners back in 2008, so we've effectively equalled that by winning combinations of drivers. 8 different winning teams, winning combinations of drivers would be a new record. We might well have it, because there are still a whole host of quick drivers, quick teams, quick brands that have not had a victory in the ADAC GT Championship yet this year. The grid is formed, pole position going the way after 20 minutes in the dry this morning to Mirko Bortolotti's Lamborghini. He and Ezequiel Perez Compact had a win at the Lausitzring, where the ADAC GT Masters hooked up with the DTM. The circuit now effectively closed to public race meetings. Alongside on the front row of the grid, Maxi Goetz starting in the 84 Mercedes that he shares with Patrick Assenheimer, moving from Corvettes to Mercedes for this year, the Assenheimer family Mercedes dealers. So in terms of marketing, it makes sense to have him in one of those cars. The second row, Kelvin van der Linde starting in the ADAC Motorsport number 3 Audi, a car that in yesterday's race finished strongly and was second, the best result for the team of the season. And then on the outside of that row, Rolfi Neichen and Christian Engelhardt in the second of the GRT Grasser Racing Team Lamborghinis. Now you would say, on that evidence, that the Lamborghinis look strong. We've got no idea who's going to be strong in the wet, because as I say, they've had no wet running over the course of the weekend. It's a real step into the unknown, and that step is about to be taken. The race is due to blast off at 13:05. It's 13:08 and change local time. You can see the clock underneath the Kuthsteiler Vierundzwanzig gantry. The grid is being cleared, and then the drivers will be released behind that safety car, ready for 2 formation laps, then the race duration of 57 minutes now. At the back of the grid, we will have the number 9 Audi Sport Racing Academy R8, Elliot Earhart at the wheel. And also near the back of the grid is the 22 MRS GT Racing Nissan, Mark Gassner, starting. That had a wheel part company with the rest of the car in the qualifying session at the start of the day. Alex McDowell is also a long way back on the grid in the Schutz Motorsport Porsche that he shares with Klaus Bachler. That car is on the 12th row. Klaus Bachler did the opening stint yesterday, so he does the second stint today. Philip Eng with Dutch driver Nick Katzberg as his co-driver is a long way back on the grid as well. We'll go through the whole grid in due course, but that's on the 10th row. Ricky Collard absent this weekend. He's away in Moscow doing DTM taxi rides, so therefore his championship hopes compromised. So Philip Eng on his own, 3rd in the championship. Championship order after yesterday, and again with Daniel Kalvitz not being here, Jules Gounod has a clear lead now of 25 points over Kalvitz, effectively 1 win in hand. Philip Eng is 3rd, 8 points ahead of Ricky Collard. Then 5th, Sebastian Asch, along with Luca Ludwig and Luca Stolz, who share a car, of course. Sebastian Asch this year driving with Stefan Mucker, but he also had Lucas Auer as a co-driver, so again he is on a different number of points from his regular co-driver. So Asch, Ludwig and Stolz all 5th equal on 54. Then it's Engelhardt and Neichen ahead of Pommer and van der Linde, with Sven Muller and Robert Renner next, 2 points up on Ezequiel Perez Compact and Mirko Bortolotti. As far as I'm aware, after this morning, nobody's suffering any real dramas, so the grid should be complete. And it was a broken drive shaft on the formation lap yesterday that did for the Jeffrey Schmidt, Christopher Haase Audi. All that sorted for the Motorsports by Land Motorsport team, and 6th it will line up. So we'll wait the final few minutes before the cars are allowed away, and pole position, Mirko Bortolotti, Maximilian Goertz lining up with him at the front. The second row being Kelvin van der Linde's Audi and Christian Engelhardt's Lambo. Then it is Luca Ludwig, who got a drive-through penalty yesterday. So did the other Zach Speed Mercedes, which pitted first. They were under on both of the pit stops, so they got it wrong on both cars, and it was a big, big error that compromised 21. In the end, getting the fastest lap of the race, Luca Ludwig fought back, but was 5th. As you have a stroll down the grid, you've seen Bortolotti and Goertz. There is Kelvin van der Linde's Audi with alongside Christian Engelhardt. Next will be the Zach Speed, there it is, Mobile Mercedes, Luca Ludwig to do the first stint, and Christopher Haase, I should say, in number 2 Audi comes next. The Mies car is a row further back behind the Corvette of Renger van der Zande as the engines are now fired up. Starting 8th is Christopher Mies, 9th is there Patrick Niederhauser, and the 10th car on the grid is the pink Audi of Mucker Motorsport, running cars from 2 different manufacturers, and that's got Frank Stippler at the wheel. Stefan Mucker will start 11th in the Mucker Mercedes, ahead of Marcus Winkelhock, who went off on the first lap yesterday, tangling with Philipp Geipel. Then it is Nikolai Silvestre and Rahel Frey, ahead of Michael Ammermuller and Marvin Kirchhofer, who was 3rd yesterday with Indy Deutsche. Then it's Christopher Zanella and Sven Muller's Porsche that he shares with Robert Renauer, ahead of Marco Mappelli and Philipp Eng as the rain still falls. Christoph Friedrich is on the 11th row with Emil Lindholm for company. Then it is Maximilian Hacklender and Alex McDowell, Mark Gassner and Michaela Arden-Kotolinsky, Nissan and Audi, with the last car on the grid, Elliot Earhart's Audi number 9 there at the back. That's how they line up, and very shortly they will set off to go and explore where all the puddles are. The Audi R8 safety car leads them away. So 2 formation laps and then 57 minutes of racing. You can see just how wet, how grey, how gloomy it is. And as the cars rumble away from that herringbone formation, a new introduction for this year, rather than having the cars in the 2x2 rolling start order on the grid, they're all parked in the old Le Mans style start, and then they accelerate away with the rain still bouncing off the ground, the headlights glistening, reflecting in the water. It is going to be very treacherous indeed, and the trouble is that the rain has not stopped, so it is only getting worse out on the circuit. Niels Vitic, who is the race director, will no doubt want feedback from the drivers, from the safety car crew as well, but they have to go racing, and it is a wet track, but they will cope, I am sure. You've got some of the top GT drivers in the world in this, the best GT teams as well. For many, it is just a warm-up for the Spa 24 Hours, which gets underway on Wednesday this week with a parade and then practice and qualifying on the Thursday. And as the cars turn through, you've got this great mix of the brands as well, with Lamborghini, Mercedes, Audi, Nissan, Chevrolet, all represented, plus BMW as well. Porsche on the grid, albeit not at the pointy end, sadly here, but we have had Porsche victories this year, with Michael Ammermuller and Mathieu Jaminet winning the opening race at Ossersleben, and also Robert Renauer and Sven Muller winning the opening race at the Lausitzring a few weeks back. So the cars are coming then now out of the Masters curve. You can see how treacherous it is as the grid has Mirko Bortolotti on pole, Maxi Goertz with him on that front row of the grid. The second row is where you find Kelvin van der Linde and Christian Engelhardt, so you've got Audi ahead of Lamborghini. The third row will be Luca Ludwig alongside Christopher Haase. Drivers trying to get warmth into the tyres and the brakes and get the pressures up. Row 4 is going to be Renger van der Zande to go first alongside Christopher Mies. He dropped back towards the end of yesterday's race. The 5th row, Patrick Niederhauser, and then Frank Stippler, vastly experienced driver, very quick, still in modern GT and historic GT cars. Then you've got Stefan Mucker in the 26 Mercedes alongside Marcus Winkelhock, winner this year of the Nürburgring 24 Hours, ahead of ex-single-seater racer Nikolai Silvestre, and then Rahal Frey going first in the Geipel Racing Jacko-backed Audi that didn't go anywhere really yesterday, went off on the first lap. Then it's Michael Ammermuller lining up alongside Marvin Kirchhofer, the Man Filter Mercedes, 3rd yesterday ahead of Christopher Zanella, and then Sven Muller former Porsche Junior, with Robert Renard in the Herbeth Porsche. Next up, Marco Mappelli, who had a punctured tyre and retired yesterday. Philippe Eng, a long way back, 20th in the Schnitzer BMW. Then it is Christoph Friedrich lining up alongside rallyman in Lindholm. Maximilian Hackländer is next with the Brit, the Cumbrian, Alex McDowell for company. Then it is Mark Gassner, the German winner of the PlayStation Academy a few years back, and Michaela Arling-Kotelinski, with the last car being that of ex-Porsche racer Elia Earhart. The Audi Sport Racing Academy R8 at the rear of the grid. There is Alex McDowell's Porsche, the black and yellow Schutz Motorsport car. Alex, of course, had that huge accident at the Red Bull Ring at the earlier part of the season when he was involved with Christopher Hasse, and is heading to the pit lane. So problems for the Porsche, number 36, then down the pit road. So the car that was a long way back on the grid anyway, sadly, heads down the pit lane. But for why? What is the problem? Let's see. See how the track state is. Very, very wet indeed. Alex McDowell comes in. And is this the end? Or can they get the car back out? Up on the jacks. Wet tyres. Don't tell me they'd sent him out on slicks. Wet's required. I'm trying to peer through the gloom and see whether it was slicks or intermediates that they gambled on. I think it was slicks, which is bizarre because it's been raining for so long. There was never any doubt it was going to be wet tyres, and so the car is put onto wets, and now we'll have to start at the rear of the field. So the wet tyres go on, and Alex McDowell done a pretty good job actually of tiptoeing around on the slicks to get that car back without any drama. The second formation lap comes to an end, so it'll be a pit lane start then now for 36, the Schutz Porsche, as we get ready for 57 minutes of the time plus the regulation lap at the end. This 11th season of the ADAC GT Masters, as ever, 7 events, 14 races, and this is our 4th race weekend. It is Jules Gounon, the championship leader, who is, like many at the moment, standing, sheltering in the pit lane, waiting to see what will happen in this first stint. Are they all going to survive the first few corners? We're about to go racing then. It's the 8th race of the year in the ADAC GT Masters at Zandvoort. Lights go green, spray hangs in the air, we go racing, and a good start by Mirko Bortolotti puts him up front as they dive down towards the Tarzan hairpin. This is going to be the first pinch point on the lap to see if everybody gets safely through. Let's see. So far, so good. Lamborghini leads. Bortolotti then has the advantage, and they turn their way out of the hairpin with going for the inside line at Gerlach, Calvin van der Linde alongside Maxi Goetz, but the Mercedes has the inside line for Hugenholtz. They tiptoe their way through that left-hander. Running in 4th is Engelhardt, 5th is Luca Ludwig, and Maxi Goetz, the ex-DTM star, hangs onto the place. The Mercedes is 2nd, the Audi is 3rd. Visibility for those in the mid-pack is negligible. The race leader, Mirko Bortolotti, is in the box seat here because he's pulling away up front. He's about the only driver, really, that can see anything. He's not affected by the spray, but he is the pioneer. Yesterday, he had a puncture and went off the road at Schreiflach, through which he has just turned, and now down to the Masters curve. But you can see how wet it is. And this, with no dry line at all, is going to preclude much overtaking to begin with. On board with Michael Ammermüller. Wiper working overtime. Look back there, you can see number 7, which is the Mappelli Seidler car, looking for a way past Sven Müller's Porsche. Ammermüller twitching as the power comes in. He's dropped back a spot now. So Sven Müller gets up ahead of him, and with the spray hanging in the air, these rooster tails formed from the cars come down now towards the Hans Ernst curve for the first time. Bortolotti making good his escape, and he could well be in the box seat here, given that he has got the best of the visibility. Drivers hunting for traction, hunting for places. Müller clatters up the inside of Nikolai Silvestre, but goes through. This is Christopher Miesi's view. That's Winkelhock ahead. Turning his way then now through the right, that brings you out of the Kumho corner towards the Ari Luijendijk curve. Speed building all the time, but you can't necessarily go accelerating away. You've got to be mindful of where the grip levels are. The leader is Bortolotti at the end of one lap. Maxi Goetz is 2nd. In 3rd is Calvin van der Linde, and 4th is Christian Engelhardt. Luca Ludwig 5th, 6th is Hasse, 7th is van der Zande, 8th now is Niederhauser, 9th is Stippler, 10th is Winkelhock, and down to 11th has gone Christopher Mies, 12th is Stefan Mucker, in 13th is Sven Muller, 14th is Nikolai Silvest, 15th Christopher Zanella, 16th Rahal Frey, 17th and falling is Amma Muller, up to 18th is Mappelli, 19th down is Kirchhofer, and Philipp Eng is in 20th spot, still struggling, but all 27 have survived the first lap with Alex McDowell at the back of the pack after that pit lane start. On board with Philipp Eng, this the Austrian's view. He's staring at the back of Marvin Kirchhofer's HTP Mercedes, but he's got two problems. One is there's no visibility, and the other problem he's got is that even if he wants to get past, there's no dry line. So he's going to have to find all the puddles on the part of the circuit not occupied by the yellow Mercedes in order to go by. It's going to make it very difficult indeed for the drivers on a track that's not that wide anyway relative to the width of a modern-day GT3 car. So the worst of the conditions that we have had all weekend pretty much now affecting the start of this ADAC GT Masters race. Whether or not the conditions are set to improve, we will wait and see as Christopher Mies now tries to get up the inside of Marcus Winkelhock. Is he going to be able to level with him? Winkelhock sharing this Mucker Audi with Philippe Salaquada, who went off the road early yesterday when he tangled with Philipp Geipel. But there, the cars turn their way down through the Hans-Ernst curve, and you can see just how horrible the conditions are still. On board with Mies, grabs a gear. Renger van der Zande in the Corvette rumbling its way out of the Kumho curve. Drivers trying to get close enough to make a move, but the closer you get, the less you see, the more spray you get. Sven Muller on the back of Stefan Mucker then. Mercedes versus Porsche as Bortolotti leads the way by 2 seconds now from Goetz, with Engelhardt in third. And Luca Ludwig, a man on a mission, former champion, in fourth place. Fifth behind him, look, is Christopher Hasse, who was denied a chance to race yesterday, but he's fighting back nicely now. Pit window between 25 and 35 minutes, 65 seconds the time for the stop. And here, look, drivers trying to gauge their pace against the brake lights of the car ahead. You're riding with Mies, he's 10th. Winkelhock just up the road ahead of him. Ahead of Winkelhock is Frank Stippler. This is proper Spa weather, never mind Zandvoort weather, so it's a very good warm-up for many of them for next weekend's 24 hours. You're riding with Mies once more through Hunsrück, being careful. Can't see anything at all. Conor De Filippi looks on somewhat nervously, knowing that he's got to get into this later on in the race and try and get the car even higher up the order. The gap between the top two in the first sector has come down a little bit, incidentally. Maxi Goetz now shaking off Engelhardt, making a move against the leader. And there, look, coming under attack now, you've got Christopher Mies, because right with him is Kelvin van der Linde, who's dropped back from his original grid position, but is recovering nicely now. Van der Linde goes through, so having lost out on the first lap, Kelvin van der Linde fights back. That car started third, but he's now 10th, but it has just gained 10th place. Kelvin van der Linde hunting down the next target, which is going to be further up the road, Marcus Winkelhock. Now look at the lead gap coming down. The leaders wriggling their way through the Hans-Ernst curve, also 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th coming down that gap. Van der Linde hustling on. Is he yet up past Niederhauser? Let's see. Stippler making progress. This is Mies's view. There is Stippler. He's making progress then. Winkelhock is behind him. Niederhauser has dropped back. Look back from Muller's car at Philipp Eng. This is Philipp Eng's view, staring at the rear of the Porsche. All these different onboards offering not only a great chance to appreciate what the drivers can or can't see, but also illustrating the different sounds that the cars make. You go from the Porsche noise to the BMW engine. Over the timing line they come. The lead gap is 1.4 seconds. Philipp Eng running in 18th place. He's a long way back here as he comes over the timing line. Eng working his way now through the hairpin at Tarzan. So the race order, Mirko Bortolotti leads, second is Maxi Goetz, third Christian Engelhardt, in fourth place you've got Luca Ludwig, fifth is Hasse, sixth is van der Zande, up to seventh is Stippler, up to 8th Winkelhock, up to 9th now van der Linde, down to 10th has gone Niederhauser, down to 11th and really struggling in these conditions it seems, Christopher Mies, 12th is Sven Muller, 13th is Christopher Zanella, 14th is Stefan Mucker, really fading in the Mercedes, 15th is Silvest Mercedes, 16th is Rahal Frey, 17th is Amma Muller, 18th, you're with him, is Eng, 19th is Mappelli, 20th is Marvin Kirchhofer. Alex McDowell is still at the back. He's not yet, I'm afraid, been able to gain places in these ghastly conditions that the drivers are coping with, but Philipp Eng is giving Michael Amma Muller a really tough time. They used to race together in Carrera Cup. There's rivals in both the Carrera Cup Deutschland and the Super Cup. There's a gap on the inside, but the big BM can't really force the issue there. On board with Christopher Mies now as he tries to find a way up past Patrick Niederhauser. He goes for the inside, coming out of the Hans-Ernst curve. Is he going to make it work here? Almost. Tries to get up alongside. There's the race leader in the meantime, though. Number 19, Mirko Bortolotti, comes up over the line. And is he heading for the pits? Yes, he is. Bortolotti down the pit lane. What is all this about? Maxi Goetz takes over the race lead. There's no penalty that's been offered up to the Lamborghini. So the race leader comes in of his own volition, potentially with a problem. Goetz leads the way. Engelhardt's Lamborghini second. And the team not ready. The team perplexed by all of this. So it is a problem for the leading car in after what looked like a dominant first stint. Comes Mirko Bortolotti then, and the Grasser Racing team somewhat mystified by all of this. I don't mean to be facetious if I say it's water in the works, but it is possible, given how heavy the rain is, that it's all to do with the water affecting things. But he wasn't in the spray, unlike others, and yet the car comes into the pit lane. So Goetz inherits the lead. Engelhardt goes up to second. Ludwig takes third. The rain still falling, but easing a touch, I would suggest, where we are near the start and finish line. So this is a car that hasn't had a win this season, and it's going to be a fascinating element to the race now to see Maxi Goetz and Patrick Assenheimer's pace in the respective stints. Now, we're looking back here from Michael Ammermuller at Philipp Eng, who arrives and almost gets into the back of the Porsche. That's Marco Mappelli that's with them as well. Look in the Lamborghini. Mappelli then tries to find a way past the BMW. Can't do it. Eng slotting back in behind. With all due deference to Assenheimer, he's not as quick as some of those around him. So Goetz now needs to try and build up as big a lead as he can. Replays, this is on-board view of Christopher Mies, trying to hustle around the outside, but in the end losing out. Sven Müller making progress. Müller in this race started 18th on the grid, is now 10th. He's becoming a real star in this. Sven Müller, the Porsche, we know goes well around here, and it is continuing to make its way up the order. But Maxi Goetz leads them, so Patrick Assenheimer will take over. But as I say, Assenheimer's pace a little bit slower than that of Goetz, and also many of those that would do the second stint. So how is that car going to fare after the stops? Kelvin van der Linde has just done the absolute best in the first sector. Everybody in the pit lane trying to second guess the weather now. Time to look on your weather app and have a look. But for the moment, the rain continues to fall, and the fastest lap just done by Goetz. Now that he's got proper visibility, he is the man being able to extend that margin. So 7.6 seconds, Goetz Mercedes over Engelhardt Lamborghini, and then third is Luca Ludwig's Mercedes, and it's all over for Mirko Bortolotti. Things happen, says the mechanic in good old Anglo-Saxon, and it's a mechanical problem that has forced the car out of the race then. So Mirko Bortolotti, a retirement as the leaders battle their way now onto lap number 6. And as the fuel load comes down and the tyres get a bit more temperature in them and the visibility improves by being out front, so Goetz continues to put in good sector times. He's already done the best lap of the race. He's now also done the absolute best within the first sector. In other words, that advantage is set to extend yet more come the end of this lap, I reckon. So the race leaders on lap 6, second, third, fourth, fifth now, all starting to bunch up. You've got Goetz ahead of Engelhardt, ahead of Ludwig, ahead of Christopher Hasse, ahead of Renger van der Zande. So he's the next one to watch really now. So let's see what van der Zande can do. Local knowledge and all that. He's there at the back of the pack as the race leaders accelerate their way up towards the timing line. They'll come through in a moment. Another fastest lap just done by Goetz, extending this advantage. Is it looking a bit brighter? Do my eyes deceive? Let's see. Everybody, lap by lap, improves. So there is a bit of a break in the sky. Certainly the cars are getting lighter and tyres are having more warmth in them, which is going to contribute. And Sven Müller is the other man on a mission. I told you he was 18th on the grid and now 10th. He's up to 7th and he's doing absolute best in the sectors. So Müller, number 99, absolutely flying. It is definitely looking a bit brighter there at Hugenholtz. The road is wet, I'll grant you, but it's looking a bit less grim than it did earlier on in the race. And so if the road dries, is that going to have an effect and help certain cars? The trouble is, it's not consistent around the lap. At certain parts it's heavy rain, at certain parts it's a little bit lighter, and it's starting to rain more heavily again at the start and finish line. Luca Ludwig you're riding with now, coming up through Grijflach down towards the Masters corner, and Ludwig third has got a charging Christopher Haase behind him, but 2.9 seconds separates 6th and 7th as there. Look, Van der Zande goes for the inside and goes 4th against Christopher Haase. So the local hero, winner yesterday, Renger van der Zande. What a great debut for the regular Mercedes driver in a Corvette. Up the inside, and Renger van der Zande goes through, takes the place. All of this set to help Jules Gounon because it's all about points for Jules in the championship now. The leaders are down at the Hans Ernst curve, and Ludwig, rather than attacking for second, is about to have to start defending a third. You're looking back, and there he has got Van der Zande behind him. Muller has done another absolute best in the sectors. Now have a look to the rear of this group, because there is Kelvin van der Linde delayed off the start, but playing catch-up, and then storming along behind him is Sven Muller in the Porsche. Van der Zande to the inside. Is this going to give him a place? It is. Ludwig has got a problem. That's why Luca Ludwig slows, coming out of the Lyndike corner. So, another leading car in strife. Goetz has done another fastest lap, but the Ludwig Mercedes comes down the pit lane. More disappointment for Zakspeed after a drive-through penalty yesterday. Down the pit lane comes the Mobile-backed Mercedes AMG GT3, and Luca Ludwig heads to the team. But it was a problem, and stop, so the team, and I've got a horrible feeling this is going to be another one bound for the garage. The engineers on the headsets. There is Luca Ludwig in the car. Do we see the belt start to be unbuckled? They're going to have a look at one of the corners by the look of it. A new tyre. Did Ludwig report a puncture? There's nothing else going on. They're not checking a weight, they're not checking the suspension, they're not looking at brakes or anything like that. So Ludwig, having perhaps reported that the car felt strange, gets a new tyre and goes back out, still on the lead lap. And in fact, because the field had become so broken up, he's not lost all that many places, relatively speaking. So through he turns. I'll give you the position he's in at the end of the lap, but Ludwig is back out again. He will drop down, but off the road goes Winkelhock. One of the most experienced hands in the championship slithers out of the road from 8th place. He gets back on just ahead of the Aust car, on board with Christopher Mies. There was no contact, it was just that Winkelhock aquaplanes off the road. So Marcus, who led his one and only Grand Prix, the Grand Prix of Europe for the Dutch Spiker team, slides off the track here at Zandvoort. He's able to get back on again, but he goes over the grass, that access tarmac, through the gravel that compacts and loses places as he gets back on. Muller in the Porsche, we're not looking at him, but I promise you he's 6th and keeps on doing absolute best in the sector, so it won't be long before he arrives on the scene and becomes a real threat. He will hand over to Robert Renard in the second stint. You're looking back at the Stefan Mucker Mercedes now. Mucker is in 14th spot. There's water, there's gravel, there's muck, there's junked rubber being thrown into the face of the pack behind as Maxi Goetz then continues to hold sway up front. It is a very wet race, a very wet track indeed right now. And second, upholding Lamborghini honour there is Christian Engelhardt, with Renger van der Zande up to 3rd at the expense then of both Haase and, of course, the pit-bound Ludwig. So things are looking good again for the Corvette, aren't they? The Callaway competition car getting itself up into 3rd spot. Can it make further progress before the end? Don't bet against it, given the way that the race has been full of drama thus far. And Van der Zande has just got great pace as well. The rumbling, the growling Corvette with all of that torque, normally aspirated engine, so not having to worry about anything like a turbo lag, is inching up onto the back of the Lamborghini. And Van der Zande, the Dutchman, being urged on by his bedraggled fans, creeping up onto the tail of the Lamborghini. 2nd and 3rd together as they make the run back down towards the Hans Ernst curve. Is this where Van der Zande makes a move? He pulls out of the spray. They almost touch. The Corvette is ahead. They do touch. He slides round the outside. He's got the inside for the next corner. And Renger van der Zande comes out ahead. Great stuff from both of them to keep the cars on the circuit. Huge applause, deservedly so, from Jules Gounon, from the rest of the team, because Renger van der Zande, round the outside of part one, the inside for part two of that sequence, takes over second place. And I reckon this could be the winning car, because Patrick Assenheimer, who will take over the leading car, I don't think he's going to be able to match the pace of Jules Gounon. And now that van der Zande is second, he's going to be able to bring down that gap anyway. What might have been at Zaxby, that says it all, a forlorn figure in the rain, standing on the Pratt perch on the pit wall. So the leading gap is 16.7 seconds. That's the margin between first and second now, after 9 laps of racing. But van der Zande, and we've got just under 40 minutes to go, is hacking away into that deficit. Christian Engelhardt then is in third place. Fourth is Hasse. Fifth is the recovering van der Linde as well. In sixth place it's Muller. The Porsche is there just about at the back of the queue. Philipp Eng is making progress, by the way. He's up to 12th. So van der Zande pushes, 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 starting now to get himself a little bit nearer, perhaps, to that race leader. So let's have a look and see what the gap is. Last time it was, as I say, 16.7 seconds. In Sector 1, fractionally quicker is the Corvette. And look at the way that van der Linde is going now. It won't be long before he's up into fourth place at the expense of Christopher Hasse, who tries to defend and have a go against the Lamborghini as well. Dives up the inside till they touch, while the Lambo gets speared out wide. One Audi through and sideways, and back up the inside goes the Lamborghini. So van der Linde gains. He goes up one spot. He might gain another in a minute. He's found all the puddles on the inside line. But Christian Engelhardt then, briefly overtaken, gets the place back. Through the gloom they come, and it's the Lamborghini just ahead of the two Audis. To the outside line and spinning off the road goes van der Linde. He hits the Lamborghini off. Totally innocent in all of that goes Christian Engelhardt. This is going to be a safety car situation for sure, because both of them are in the gravel, and it was van der Linde who tried to do what van der Zande had done round the outside, but lost traction, spun into the Lamborghini, has punted that off the road, and van der Linde, I'm afraid to say, was the catalyst in all of that. The weather conditions horrible anyway, but it was his effort round the outside that did not pay off. 2 in the gravel means we're going to get the safety car. It's on standby, look ready to go. And that's going to have a big effect as well for Gert, because his lead will be absolutely annihilated once the safety car is deployed, and everybody will bunch up. The safety car is on standby. The yellow flags are being waved, but surely we're going to have the safety car. We do now. It comes out, safety car deployed, and so let's piece it all together. It started up at turns 9. Hasse to the inside of Engelhardt. He went through, accelerated, found a big puddle, got sideways. There was contact between him and van der Linde. So back through went Engelhardt. Then van der Linde went through as well on the inside of Christopher Hasse, who's the one now laughing all the way to the bank, isn't he? He's just got 2 places back after all of this. So van der Linde there on the inside coming out of turn 8. Sorry, out of turn 10, I should say. And then on the outside line, down to the Hans Ernst curve. And he just loses it under braking. Aquaplanes, the car turns right, it hits the Lamborghini. Totally innocent in all of that. Christian Engelhardt, nothing he could do at all. Suddenly gets a big whack out of nowhere that turns his car into a spin. And Sven Muller up to 4th from 18th on the grid in the Porsche. And he's going to gain more surely on the restart. He's becoming my real hero of this race. Christian Engelhardt trudges away. I suspect he's had a word with Calvin van der Linde to say, what were you thinking? What van der Linde was thinking was, if van der Zande can do it, so can I. But he couldn't. And the Audi just aquaplaned with the amount of standing water, contact made. And so we are behind the safety car, and also just to throw something else into the melting pot, the pit window opens in just over a minute's time. So you can anticipate everybody coming in to get the stops out of the way early and leaving the second driver to do all the hard work. And it might even be that we have a bit of a shuffle as different teams get it right or get it wrong on the pit stops. If anybody is at the back of the queue, could they come in this time and get the stop done and stay on the lead lap? It would certainly help, because then you'd be at the front of the queue once everybody else makes that situation work for their mandatory pit stops. I'm thinking about the number 21 Mercedes, for example. Could that car come in, get the stop done, get back out and inherit the lead when everybody else ahead peels into the pit lane? It might be worth a punt from Zaxby, depending on whether the car gets to the timing line in less than 20 seconds. You're on board with Ludwig. Deep concentration. This is where the strategists on the pit wall become very important indeed. Right, he's gone through the incident zone. By the time he gets to the line-dyke curve, the pit window should be open. So this is the replay of his stop with the car having that tyre change. It was the left rear. And then, having had a look at it, the Pirelli technicians don't seem to find anything nasty. Ludwig is in. So Luca Ludwig comes in. Exactly what I was suggesting has happened. Because he was so far back, the pit window opened by the time he got to the exit of the curve. And so now, this car will be the first to serve its mandatory stop. This should give it the race lead. This makes up, potentially, for all the dramas in the pits yesterday from Zach Speed. Get the mandatory stop done now. They will therefore regain track position once the rest of the field peels out of the way. Now, a stop is 65 seconds, so they will potentially go a lap down, but of course they'll gain that back once everybody else has to serve the mandatory stop. So you can see the little countdown on the graphic. 20 seconds now before the car can cross the line at pit out. It's not necessarily the stationary time. Are they having another look at that wheel, that left rear corner? So still potentially things concerning the drivers. 8, 7, 6. You're at pit out, so they don't want to risk it. They don't want to get it wrong today. Go, go, go. That graphic will show you now it is 2 seconds over the mandatory time by the time it rumbles away. So there's nothing wrong with that pit stop. And out it has gone, and it will catch the cue and stay on the lead lap. And so that potentially is the winning pit stop in the race. The race leaders go through and they all come into the pits. So you've got Goetz in, Van der Zander is in, Haase comes in. They're all pouring down the pit road now. And this is where the order potentially is going to jumble, depending on whether some teams are really good at releasing the cars or whether one or two teams are a bit slow in releasing the cars. Now, the one that has stayed out because it couldn't come in because the team was worried about 21 is the number 20 Zach Speed car, Nikolai Silvest, being at the wheel of it. So we'll have a look at the race order after the stops and see now how it pans out. Look how crowded it is. The Porsche there, that's the Ammermuller car, being badly impeded. Callaway are trying to get Gunon into the Corvette, but with everybody in the pit lane bar two cars, effectively, some are just absolutely hammed in and you can't go anywhere. So you're utterly dependent on having a good neighbour. Away goes Gunon, away goes Haase, and that's going to change, isn't it? Yes, the Audi is ahead on the stops, look. So the Audi goes ahead on pit stops. 17 has lost out. And 48 Mercedes rumbles away. It is going to be a jumbled order. I'll go through it at the end of the lap because there are some that are in real strife because they couldn't get away. So there's this mass exodus from the pit lane. And then, of course, they can't overtake because we're still behind the safety car. So the beneficiary out of all of that is Christopher Haase. He's handed the car number 2 to Jeffrey Schmidt. And that gains track position over the Corvette of Jules Gunon. Now, where does 99 slot back in all of this, which is the Muller to Renault Porsche? There is 36, Klaus Bachler now, having taken over from Alex McDowell. Conor De Filippi is in number 1 after Christopher Mies did the first stint. And there is Christopher Mies, along with Christopher Haase, talking to Wolfgang Land about just how wet it was out there. And Christopher Haase's car, Jeffrey Schmidt at the wheel, gaining on the pit stops then. So it is, at the moment, number 20 leading the way, but that has yet to stop. Behind is the number 9 Audi, and that has yet to stop. So this is genuinely the top 2, but they will probably peel in at the end of this lap. So what you're going to have, ultimately, should be Stoltz in the lead, but the lead will disappear because they'll all catch up to him if we're still behind the safety car. And then, as Rahal Frey talks to the Geipel team, Philip Geipel in that car will be up into 11th place, potentially. So we'll have a look, as I say, at what the order is compared to what it was. In comes Nikolai Silvest to give way to Nikolai Rogivu. Also in comes the Michaela Arlen-Kotelinski Audi. Right, there is a rather lonely safety car. So this should now put, let's see whether I'm right, Stoltz into the lead. Van der Linde still talking to Engelhardt. I think they've calmed down a bit now, realising just how ghastly the conditions were. We've got 30 minutes of the race to go. Kelvin van der Linde yet to feel safe enough to take his crash helmet off, potentially, unless he's just keeping dry. Right, Rogier Vuta Silvest goes through. Now, what has happened in all of this to the 21 Stoltz Mercedes? That car has not yet gone through. So I was telling you a fib when I said it might give it the race lead. I thought it kept it on the lead lap, but unless there's a transponder issue, that car has not gone through. It has now, and is still in fact down in its 24th place. So what we have is Christopher Hasse as the leader, ahead of Jules Gounon. I would have thought that the Mercedes would have taken its position back as everybody else cycled into the pit lane, but it has not worked out that way. So it is number 2 Jeffrey Schmidt in the lead of the race. 77 Jules Gounon is second. In third place now is going to become number 6, which is the Christopher Zanella Lamborghini. And there, Renger van der Zande looking at the GPS to see where the cars are. And there is the order. So you've got the Audi leading the way, Jeffrey Schmidt at the wheel of it, the Lumirang display on the windscreen showing you their position. So I'm surprised that it didn't work out for Zakspeed. I thought by pitting, getting the stop out of the way, and then being able to catch the Crocodile, they would have taken the lead as everybody else peeled in, but it appears not to have worked out that way for them. So Lukas Stoltz is still way, way back in 24th place. I think perhaps because it was the safety car having been triggered, and therefore when he did rejoin he wasn't able to go at a fast pace. That's why he wasn't able to play catch-up. We've got many, though, already being investigated. Mapelli Seidler's car is being investigated for the pit stop duration. So also is the Mucker Ash Mercedes. So too is the Backler McDowell Porsche, and so also is the Indy Deutsche Marvin Kirchhofer Mercedes. So if they are under on the pit stops, then they will be investigated. So the real beneficiary, as we saw, is the Hasse Schmidt Audi. It got ahead of Gounon anyway, but has now got the race lead. So what happened to Patrick Assenheimer? He's down in 7th place, a slow stop for what was the leading car. Robert Renauer in 99 has dropped back as well. The Porsche is down in 9th spot, but of course there are a few in all of this who are going to lose places if penalties come for being under on the pit stops. So there, the safety car leads number 2. The timing screen still shows Christopher Hasse, but it is now Jeffrey Schmidt behind the wheel, ahead of Jules Gounon, the championship leader, who may well be quite content to sit there and bank the points. Then in third place now, number 6, which is Christopher Zanella and Florian Spengler's Lamborghini. The car started yesterday by Spengler, so he now does the second stint today. Marco Mapelli and Norbert Seidler running in 4th place, a car that Norbert Seidler now drives. Then you've got Patrick Assenheimer ahead of Conor de Filippi. Safety car in this lap, and Jules Gounon under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. So 77 Corvette runs second, but it's under investigation for pit lane speeding. We'll go back to green flags this time. 26 minutes are still on the clock. And still a treacherous track awaits the unwary. So, number 2, Audi leading the way. It was 4th when it came into the pit lane. And Jules Gounon running in 2nd spot. So the car has still gained, but it's now behind a different Audi. 3rd, you can see, is the other beneficiary, because when Zanella came in, they were 8th, and now 3rd is Florian Spengler, but that's another of those cars being looked at. Right, the lights will go out shortly, the safety car in this time, and then we'll be back to racing as the field tiptoes its way out of turns 9 and 10. And now, with a message having got to the drivers, Jeffrey Schmidt it is, who starts to weave around and try and get some warmth back into the rubber. Jeffrey Schmidt moving into GTs and Audis, away from Porsche racing for this season. He's not had a victory with Christopher Hasse yet. Could this be the day, or could Jules Gounon do it, or could that car cop a penalty for speeding in the pit lane? Jules Gounon in the Corvette Getting onto the back of the Audi. Behind in third place is Spengler, Mapelli fourth. So you've got the HB Racing cars, the two Lamborghini Huracans, third and fourth. Normally, Grasser is the team that is right at the pointy end for Lamborghini, but HB Racing upholding honour right now. Pit window is closed then, everybody having served the stops anyway, because they all came in en masse, and now we will go back to racing. So the question about number 21, Mercedes, Lucas Stoltz, is what can he do by natural overtaking, not by trying to win through pit strategy, because that didn't pay out as an effort he's made up the inside there. Looks like Conor De Filippi makes a move. Patrick Assenheimer losing out, and 2 places gained by De Filippi because he goes ahead of number 7 as well, gets past Norbert Siedler on the inside. Conor De Filippi goes through, and now Assenheimer comes up to have a go at Siedler, and the Mercedes, with all that grunt, goes through as well. So Maxi Goetz, who led early on, now watches Assenheimer way down the order. Robert Renauer carrying on Sven Muller's good work, goes wide, hunting for a bit of grip. Another car that's really lucked into this is 48 Mercedes, because now Indy Doinker is in 8th place, whereas 48... Marvin Kirchhofer 16th when it came into the pit lane. So that car has really won on the pit stops. I grant you there are a number being looked at, and that is one of them. But for the moment, it's gained a huge amount of ground. The leader, Jeffrey Schmidt, is getting away, and Florian Spengler is becoming the man to watch now, right on the tail of Jules Gounon. This is De Filippi on the restart, goes for it, gets up the inside of Assenheimer, and makes his move against Siedler at the same time. So through he goes. 2 places gained by the reigning champion, Conor De Filippi. Christopher Mies having done the opening stint, but it's the sister car with, at the moment, Jeffrey Schmidt at the wheel of it, leading the way, and in the first sector, getting away from the pack behind. So it is Gounon ahead of Spengler, and then an absolutely flying Conor De Filippi is up into 4th place. Look, you're riding with him. So where was he at the start of the lap? 6th, he's now 4th, and a car that was 7th before the pit stops is now going great guns. A drive-through penalty is being given to Indy Doinker for the pit stop duration not being long enough. There's also a drive-through penalty going the way of Klaus Bachler for the same offence, and a drive-through for Gounon for speeding in the pit lane. A drive-through penalty for Jules Gounon then. The championship leader running in 2nd in the race will get a drive-through for pit lane speeding. Conor De Filippi is about to go 3rd, and that will translate to be 2nd when the Corvette pits. Norbert Siedler has got a problem, and he's come into the pit lane, and also coming in is Sebastian Asch in the Mercedes. They're both drive-through penalties for pit stop duration violations. So, penalties fly, and now Conor De Filippi is on target to make it a Land Motorsport 1-2 as he comes up to challenge Jules Gounon, who has got to serve a drive-through for speeding in the pit lane anyway. I told you the teams can get it right or wrong. If they get it wrong, it has big, big consequences. You only have to be 10ths short of that mandatory pit stop time, and you're in real strife, because a drive-through penalty will cost you a great chunk. This is De Filippi's move on the inside against Spengler, down towards Tarzan, hard on the brakes, into the right, and through on the inside goes Conor De Filippi. Lots of applause from Wolfgang Land and Christopher Mies. Christopher Haas, I think, you're going to catch us now, aren't you, Conor? Don't like the look of this. So at the moment, it is Land 1-3, but the Corvette there in 2nd spot has to serve this drive-through for speeding in the pit lane. They're all bunching up anyway. Spengler running 4th, Assenheimer is 5th, Robert Renauer 6th. That Porsche could still be a surprise before the end. 48 there, look, Indy Doinker. That car has still got to come in and do a drive-through for speeding. Behind that, you've got Mathieu Jaminet and Alex McDowell now running in 9th place. So the Klaus Bachler, Alex McDowell Porsche up into 9th spot. It's Klaus Bachler at the wheel of it. The timing screen still says McDowell. Apologies, it is Klaus Bachler. So that car has certainly gained after a pit lane start. Alex McDowell, remember, had to change on to wets. White wasn't on wets to begin with. Discuss. But from the pit lane, the car is now 9th, and Klaus Bachler at the wheel of it going strongly. So the Porsche's looking good in these conditions. Robert Renauer won the Dubai 24 Hours. He's at the back of this leading line in 6th place. This couldn't be more different, could it, from Dubai? Weather and a big spin. Assenheimer loses it. Aquaplanes, bang, into the wall. That'll be a safety car, unless he can drive it off the dirt, and I fear that on friction-free grass, that's going to be asking a lot. Assenheimer's car in the barriers, and the safety car will be on standby, because if that can go no further on its own, we're going to have the race neutralised. So you saw it just break away Patrick Assenheimer lost traction, round it went. Safety car is on standby. So it's a place lost for Assenheimer. It is a race lost for HTP in that respect, because the car is out of the race now, and there it just breaks away as the car aquaplanes, and there's nothing that Assenheimer can do. That's quite a hard hit, actually, into the barrier. There's not very much runoff at certain parts of Zandvoort. This old school circuit opened in 1948. The safety car is deployed. Our second safety car period, and there the Audi heads out onto the circuit and will scoop them all up. And so is this the opportunity that is needed for Gounod to get that speeding pit lane drive-through out of the way? The safety car awaits down at the Tarzan hairpin. Tarzan, if you're wondering, or if you care even, was a local potato farmer who used to be out in all weathers in the bush. That's how he got the nickname of Tarzan. And when the permanent circuit was built, they needed some of his land, and as you look at Wolfgang land, and so money was offered, and Tarzan appreciated the offer but said, no, I'll just take the recognition if you don't mind. So the corner was named after him. Tarzan hairpin became the name, and there the discussion is between Land and ADAC Motorsport about pit stops and possibly one car impeding the other. But that is how the Tarzan hairpin got its name. So we're seeing here the replay of the long line of cars pouring in, and of course for some, if you get hemmed in the pits, and there, look, yes, you could see Land and Herbeth, one car impeding the other. So that is why Renault dropped back, and then it becomes this sort of to and fro job to find clear track space. So did Van der Zande speed on the way in, or did Gounod speed on the way out? There you can see the Land Audi accelerates away ahead. So that was Jeffrey Schmidt ahead of Robert Renault. Because the Porsche couldn't go anywhere, it inevitably lost track position. And as I said at the time, you need good neighbours, but it's a cramped pit lane, and when everybody comes in at once, it's always going to trigger drama. So there is the Mercedes quickly out of the way. That's over at the Gerlach corner, or Gerlach corner, and the marshals try and get that to a place of greater safety behind the barrier. We've got 17 3/4 minutes still to go. Safety car remains on track, of course. So no overtaking permitted as the field worked its way through. Everybody trying to find the traction, assess the weather conditions, and see if the grip levels are improving anywhere, and therefore allow an opportunity to push even harder when we get to the restart. So the lights still flash, and the safety car will be in this lap, we're told. So we're going to go back to racing, and that means that Jules Gounod, who did pit last time to get the drive-through out of the way, falls down the order, but hopefully might be able to fight back in what is left of the race. So race leaders come to the Hans Ernst curve. Still, Indy Deutsche has to take that drive-through in the HTP man filter car. Where does this put Lucas Stolz now, after all the drama? 14th he is. At the end of the previous lap, he'll have gained one spot with Gounod pitting. But, as I said at the time, with the car having rejoined still under safety car conditions, he wasn't able to push fully to catch up before everybody else peeled into the pit lane. Leaders come through. So Jeffrey Schmidt leads the way. Conor de Filippi is second, and the way that Conor has been going, the American driver could well be on for a win here. In third, it is Spengler. Fourth is Renault. Fifth is this man, Mathieu Jaminet. So that car out of nowhere now looking pretty strong. It wasn't appallingly placed on the grid. It was 15th, but it didn't have a great first stint in Ammermüller's hands. But Mathieu Jaminet going well now. Philipp Eng is in a battle here, or rather Nick Katzberg at the wheel of Eng's BMW is, because round the outside he goes. That's another car that's been chipping away up the order. Katzberg running in now 7th place, having gone round the outside of Mike Ortmann in the Stippler Audi. So there are the top two. Could it be a 1-2 finish for them? Land of hope and then glory in this for Wolfgang Land's team. This is Conor de Filippi's view, looking at the back of Jeffrey Schmidt. Now, the reigning champion knows this car inside out. Jeffrey Schmidt knows it rather less well. That should give the upper hand to Conor de Filippi then. For third place, it's Florian Spengler ahead of Robert Renault here. Lamborghini versus Porsche. Fifth is the Porsche of Mathieu Jaminet, one of the Team 75 Bernhardt cars. 6th, Philip Geipel. I don't think we've even seen that car in the race, but it's got up into 6th ahead of now Katzberg's BMW 7th. 8th is Ortmann. 9th it is 13, which is now Sven Bart at the wheel. And 10th, Philip Salaquada, having taken over from Marcus Winkelhock. Down towards Hans-Ernst Curve they come. The other danger in all of this is Jaminet, who is looking a lot stronger. You're riding with him, tiptoeing his way up towards the Kumo right-hander. Gently down through the gears. Second gear. He's short shifting a little bit to keep the wheel spin down, and then up towards the timing line. So Mathieu Jaminet 5th. There's Renaud dropping off the back of Spengler a little bit as they come through. The leading gap was 0.7 of a second. It's gone up a bit to 1 second. So Jeffrey Schmidt trying to fight back. He had his first Carrera Cup Germany win in mixed conditions at the Red Bull Ring going back a couple of seasons. But now as he powers his way towards the Kerlak curve, he leads this ADAC GT Masters second race of the weekend with 14 minutes of pressure still ahead of him. Jules Gounon was 11th at the start of the lap. Has he gained any ground? Let's see as the field accelerates its way through. There you've got the battle going on between Salaquada, and tucked up with him is first of all the Mercedes. Lukas Stolz trying to gain ground. Also Dennis Marshall in the Audi. But Jules Gounon ahead of that group, having got himself up past Philip Salaquada. So Gounon for the top 10 might gain more out of it before the very end. Through they come over the brow that takes them down towards Schreiflach. Tiptoeing through that right-hander, Lukas Stolz now about to try to make a move if he can. Stolz in the Mercedes, Dennis Marshall is ahead of him in the Audi. And Nick Katzberg, would you believe, has just done an absolute best in the first sector. The BMW is 6th, 6.4 seconds away from the leaders, but Nick Katzberg now an absolute best in sector 1. Jeffrey Schmidt an absolute best in the second sector. But look at the back of this little group. This battle pack is about to be joined by Nick Katzberg. You're on board with Jaminet. Accelerates his way towards the Kumo curve. Florian Spengler, Robert Renaud go through 3rd, 4th. Jaminet is 5th, in 6th spot behind them should be Nick Katzberg. And when you've got a clear road and a bit of visibility, it's amazing what you can do to inch up onto the back of the pack ahead. Over the timing line they come. Spray still hanging in the air. But the rain, I think, over the start line has pretty much stopped. So it's only the standing water and the spray now that's the real effect, rather than it being added to. Replay here in super slow-mo of Philip Geipel going ahead of the 13 Corvette. Sven Bart at the wheel of it. Sven, who has, of course, a new co-driver for this year in Maximilian Hackländer, regular co-driver of years past. Renault Lips going to the MRS Nissan. On board with Jaminet then, runs 5th. Fastest lap of the race, Conor de Filippi now in the number 1 Audi. So he's creeping up onto the back of Jeffrey Schmidt. Is Land going to let them race to the end, or are they going to have to hold station here and not risk anything? Katzberg is still a man on a mission, closing on the car ahead of him, Mathieu Jaminet's Porsche. Through the gloom they come. Jules Gounon is 10th, next target being Mike Ortmann in the number 25 Lucca Audi. First and second turn through. Katzberg, another absolute best within the first sector. You're riding now with the Dutchman. Nick, who of course proved when he won the Spa 24 Hours for Mark VDS a couple of seasons back that he's a star in a GT3 car, but he's also now a star much in demand in the World Touring Car Championship, of course, part of the Polestar Volvo effort. Unlucky in Argentina recently, but as he brakes now for the Hans-Ernst curve, he's creeping up onto the tail of Jaminet. He's got to be oh so patient with the throttle through this section. He doesn't want to floor it and lose traction as befell Patrick Assenheimer a little while ago. Now Florian Spengler, 3rd, has just done the absolute best middle sector, trying to get back onto terms with the 2 leading Audis. Katzberg has a bit of a lift as he comes into the final Ari Luijendijk curve, but look, blue sky over the circuit now. I don't think it's going to do enough to dry the road. There's still a huge amount of standing water, but a race that's been affected by the conditions might yet see the road dry out, and a damp rather than wet track might help and hinder different cars accordingly. This is Katzberg's view. That Porsche ahead of him of Jaminet is getting bigger. Katzberg has now done the fastest lap of the race. You're riding with him. Nick Katzberg 6th, pushing. This car started 20th on the grid. It's still 6 seconds back from the leaders and 10 minutes to go. That's asking too much because, of course, Katzberg has to catch and then try and get through the traffic first of all. But you never know what might happen between the leading Audis. They're together and oh, another one is in the gravel. It is Nikolai Rogivu this time in number 20 off the road. Is that going to be another safety car? It's down at the Tarzan hairpin, is it not? It's a long way off, but the constant risk is that if you don't move it, somebody else could go off and hit it. From the high cam, you see, just runs out of traction into the gravel, and eventually it bogs down enough to bring out the safety car for the third time. Third safety car period, and now the question will be, how much racing can we get in, if much, before the end of 9.5 minutes plus 1 lap? That regulation lap at the end should be good to give us at least that, but how long will it take to hoik that car out of the way? So we go safety car again. The marshals are quickly there, and the safety car is deployed then in what has been another busy race. So it started as 57 minutes because of the 2 green flag laps, and now we are up to our third and hopefully final safety car period. The road still wet, still treacherous. Shows the cars work their way through the Hans Ernst curve at high camera, looking down on this superb seaside circuit, Zandvoort. These days enjoying a real resurgence, new ownership, new optimism, new events such as the historic Grand Prix. The DTM comes here in a month's time, and that's an important part of Zandvoort to give international exposure. And the attitude of everybody involved in the circuit these days is a lot more optimistic. Very, very helpful team, and the circuit making great strides forward. It's limited on what it can do because of the noise regulations, but it has managed to find more noisy days, can have bigger events, and offering up some fine racing. And this weekend, free admission to certain parts of the circuit for the fans. If you want to come into the paddock, then you pay for that. But to attract people in and give them a good day at the races, there are certain areas, as I say, that are free admission. And with Zandvoort town a stone's throw, almost literally, away from the circuit, it's a busy place anyway. Lots of local promotion goes on, and these are the ideal cars to attract people in as they look at the Super Sports Car League in action. So the race order behind the safety car with now 7.5 minutes, pretty much. Jeffrey Schmidt leads Conor de Filippi. Florian Spengler runs third ahead of Robert Renauer. Fifth, you with him, Mathieu Gemine. Sixth is Nick Katzberg. Seventh is Philippe Geipel. Eighth, Sven Bart. Ninth is Mike Ortman. And 10th is Jules Gounon. The clock ticks on down. A car that didn't start yesterday with a broken drive shaft leads today. And Mathieu Gemine then turns through turn 10, first gear, grabs second, and again trying to keep the temperature in the tyres and the brakes ready for the restart. Accelerates down towards the Hans Ernst curve, who for over 20 years was the chief executive of the Zandvoort circuit and guided it through many a troubled time. The circuit, the former home of the Dutch Grand Prix, part of the top of the circuit, chopped off, sold off and built on many years ago, but what's left of the circuit still echoes that original shape pretty much. And again, this final sequence, the old Boss out curve made into the Kumho, then a short-ish straight into the separate Arie-Luijendijk curve, and there is Nikolai Rogivu walking away. So one Zach Speed Mercedes up to 12th, now Lucas Stoltz, but still not in the points. The other one in a rather undignified fashion, being hoiked out of the way. So we'll have at least one more lap, I would have thought, behind the safety car. It turns its way through. Back on board with Mathieu Gemine. A lot has happened in this race. Yeah, what will we have on the restart? Safety cars breeding safety cars and all that, but with them all being tightly bunched and a wet road and everybody needing to push in what's going to be limited remaining time. Let's see what pans out. So as the cars now turn their way through Hunsrück towards the Stottermacher curve. Just seeing if there was any news about the demise early on of Bortolotti. None, I'm afraid, I can find. But as the cars accelerate through, the safety car will be in this lap, so we're going to have around about 4 minutes plus a lap, which is what, 3 laps of racing? Nick Katzberg on his toes, ready for the restart. It's a little bit brighter up the road, isn't it? But not by much. And of course, the problem of overtaking is still there, that you've got to go offline where all the puddles remain. So what else does this race have as a sting in the tail? Are we going to have a surprise result? Are we going to have another car going off? Or are we going to have this land monopoly? Never mind Monteplas by land, it's monopoly by land at the moment of first and second. Is that going to remain? Porsche has been a successful car here in previous seasons, with 2 victories around the Zandvoort circuit. But as the cars come now down towards the braking zone, we had an Audi win last year here. Rahal Frey and Philippe Geipel victorious in the equivalent Sunday race. The Saturday race won by David Jan and Kevin Estra's Bernard Porsche. Ludwig and Asch, when they drove for Zakspeed, winning in 2015, their championship winning season. And the Schutz team winning in 2014, both races, Kevin Estra and Jaap van Lagen. Now the rain falls more heavily once again now over at the Hans Ernst curve. And it's absolutely lashing down on the start line as well. So conditions worsening at this part of the track as we are good to go racing once again with 3 3/4 minutes to go. Running out wide. The Porsche there slips off the road, and that is Mathieu Jaminet letting Katzberg go through. So Jaminet losing out. Katzberg then gains 1 place, does he, as he comes up towards the line. Through they go. I think he might have given it back, actually, because in theory, overtaking behind before the safety car line not permitted. Change for the lead as De Filippi goes through them. So he makes his move and he's gone by. Has he? Conor De Filippi up front. Jeffrey Schmidt down to second. What's going on for third? Renauer is on his toes to try to find a way ahead of Spengler as they turn their way down towards Hugenholtz in these atrocious conditions that have got probably as bad now as they were at the start of the race. The 2 Land Audis then, first and second. Conor De Filippi leading the way. Jeffrey Schmidt down to second. And De Filippi set to push clear, I would have thought now. Jaminet keeping Katzberg at bay. But now the BMW goes to the inside line, going down towards Gijflach. Does he go through? He's still alongside on the inside. Wait to see what comes out of the corner. They remain side by side. This is brave stuff by Katzberg. He's going to go through on the inside line, is he? Jaminet stands his ground on the outside, and Katzberg still can't make the move stick. He's got the inside line here for 9. Outside for turn 10, through the gloom, which are the headlights ahead. They're the Porsches. So Nick Katzberg threw everything at it. He's almost in the back of the 911 as he tries to elbow his way through, and he spins. Round goes the BM, and a big hit indeed, as into him goes Sven Barth. The Corvette head on into the BMW, and Nick Katzberg limps on with the bodywork falling off the car. It's going to be a safety car. It could even be a red flag, this, because there won't be time, I wouldn't have thought, to get the 2 cars moved and go racing again. And so, let's see what happens next. You've got 2 cars stranded. The safety car is deployed, but that, I fear, will take you to the end of the race. Nick Katzberg tried to get past the Porsche. He lost it. He was hit absolutely head-on by the Corvette. This is how he saw it. So he lost out on the outside line. He went to the inside, tried to prise open the door. There was a nudge. Loses traction. Round he goes, and wait for the Corvette. Bang. Big hit. It puts the BMW back in the right direction, but it goes effectively no further. From the outside, there it is. The BMW spins, and Sven Barth plows into him, and Katzberg lucky not to get hit by Jules Gounon, who was going through. Now, there are some teams that desperately need this race to at least complete 1 more lap for their newly gained position to stand, rather than it to be a red flag. But the safety car has been deployed, so that is our 4th safety car period of the race. I was a bit previous when I said our final one a little while ago. So there it is from the outside. Round goes Katzberg. And that, I'm afraid, that blow you see from the Corvette is not just a blow to the BMW, but also to Philippe Eng's championship hopes, because rather than banking points, it is a retirement. So was Katzberg wrong to keep trying? Should he have banked the points? Well, it's academic now. He's out of the race. Eng does not score, and Nick Katzberg, rare that he blots his copybook, but that's a certain amount of ink upon it. And the Land team watching that and seeing the impact as the head-on comes from the Corvette. Wolfgang Land, former racer himself, appreciates what both drivers have gone through. And a real shame for Sven Bart, because that Corvette was running nice and strongly in 7th place, but now gets no result at all. It's rare, in fairness, that the car is that far up the order, but just unlucky. Wrong place, wrong time. Comes out of turn 10 and went the wrong way, effectively. So through the incident zone they come. We've hit 0, but there's no way, I don't think, we're going to get the race back underway. It'll be finishing behind the safety car, won't it now? So the order we have is the order that will stand. Conor de Phillippi and Christopher Mies are going to win and give us, depending on which way you look at this, either an 8th or a 7.5 different winning combination, because we've got, of course, Jules Gounon having been with 2 different co-drivers as a winner this year, but as you get a replay here of the move for the lead up the inside with limited resistance by Jeffrey Schmidt, goes Conor de Phillippi, goes through, takes the race lead, and it was a crucial move, of course, because by the end of the lap the safety car was back out. But in terms of winning combinations, this will give us a record 8th of a year. Not withstanding the fact that Jules Gounon has been in 2 of those winning combinations, as I say, is the only multiple victor this year. So the safety car brings them onto the last lap, and we have effectively a result now, because the clock has hit 0. There's the regulation lap at the end, and it will be a win for Conor de Phillippi and Christopher Mies from Jeffrey Schmidt and Christopher Haase in 2nd, and 3rd will go the way, the best result of the season, for Florian Spengler and Christopher Zanella. Florian Spengler, the former Porsche and Polo racer. Christopher Zanella, who we saw in Formula Renault 2 litre and 3.5. 4th from way, way back on the grid. It's going to go the way of Sven Muller and Robert Renard. 5th, Mathieu Jaminet and Michael Ammermuller. So not only did they not lose the place to Nick Katzberg, but they survived all the attacks. Up into 6th then, Geipel and Frey. Up to 7th after the speeding infringement in the pit lane. Jules Gounon, good recovery with Renger van der Zande. 8th is going to be Dennis Marshall and Patrick Niederhauser. 9th, Mike Ortmann and Frank Stippler. And 10th from the pit lane, it is going to be the Klaus Battler, Alex McDowell Porsche. So this is the view on board with Conor de Phillippi as the team starts to celebrate, because they know that nothing can change now. Whilst we're behind the safety car like this, they get ready for the cars to come over the line, and we'll see how that affects the championship and affects different drivers' hopes in due course. There's a hugely frustrated Sven Bart out of the car. He's been a regular in this ADAC GT Masters for many, many seasons. The safety car will peel in this time, but only really so that you have the ceremonial finish, the checkered flag to be waved without the safety car spoiling the shots. And Nick Katzberg has a wander over to say, I'm sorry, I couldn't really see very much, and accepting his part in the accident, but it's done quite a bit of damage to the Corvette, a lot of damage to the front of the BMW. So, as I said at the time, it's unusual that Nick Katzberg does make mistakes. That was one, but in the conditions and with his eagerness to try and gain places for Philipp Eng, and he had the pace in the car anyway, maybe you can't argue that he should have had a go, but in hindsight, well, it's a damaged car, it's a non-finish, it's no points for Philipp Eng. And so, the 8th round of the ADAC GT Masters is going to end as the safety car peels to the pits. The drivers will make their way up towards the checkered flag, and what a race it has been. Lots of drama all the way through, where in the end of all of that did Luca Stoltz and Luca Ludwig get to 11th, not quite breaking into the points. But as Conor de Phillippi then brings the car through, Christopher Mies and Conor de Phillippi will win the second race of the weekend in the ADAC GT Masters. It is a land 1-2 as they make their way up towards the timing line. So number 1 Audi scores the win. Second goes the way of the number 2 sister car. Jeffrey Schmidt brings it home. Christopher Haase having done the hard yards at the start. And then third, Florian Spengler and Christopher Zanella. Christopher Mies, a happy man, a race winner. And Conor de Phillippi, the American, who first came to prominence really in European racing when he came to the Formula Ford Festival, and then the Walter Hayes Trophy as part of Jeremy Shaw's USA scholarship effort in FF 1600 racing, but then came back into Europe to race in Carrera Cup Germany, and did a very strong job, but then moved to GT racing, and the reigning champion coming home as a race winner, adding to what's been a good season with a win in the Nürburgring 24 Hours. Delight for Florian Spengler and Christopher Zanella then taking third, the best result of the season for those two, and the best result for HB Racing as well, the team that operates the Lamborghini. Christopher Hasse, Audi factory driver, settling for his second spot. And the HB Racing team, as I say, with that Lamborghini, the team of Dietmar Hirsch and Andreas Fuchs, make their way shortly down towards the Parc Fermé area, where the Christophers, Mies and Hasse, will make their way as well. There's barely one without the other in Audi GT racing. It's been this way for a number of seasons now. Of course, they shared with Stefan Ortelli to win the first Blancpain Endurance title a long time ago, back in, 2012 now. But as they arrive, earlier, 2011, as they arrive at the foot of race control, the teams are there. Kai Oliver Langendorf from the ADAC's media department gives them the regulation Pirelli winners' caps. And very shortly, the winning drivers will arrive. Marshall's getting them out of the way. Never mind celebrating, chaps. We've got cars coming past, so can't stand that. So now, hopefully, they will be allowed through into Parc Fermé. As the winning car, number 1 Audi, accelerates to the pit lane. For Land Motorsport, the perfect way to bounce back from yesterday's disappointment for number 2, broken drive shaft putting it on the sidelines. Race win today for number 1, and second place for the number 2, Jeffrey Schmidt, Christopher Hasse entry. But Christopher Mies cheers Conor de Filippi in. One last blast of the engine, door open, and what a way to turn the race around. Conor de Filippi, an excellent job done. We've got the story continuing, in fact, because number 50, the Jaco Geipel Frey Audi, is under investigation for an unsafe release. So, as the blue sky now is evident above, the stewards are set to go and do some more investigation. Conor de Filippi continues to enhance this reputation he has in German motorsport, GT racing in particular, as Jeffrey Schmidt, a Swiss driver, will take off his helmet, but being consoled by Christopher Hasse, not as quick as Conor de Filippi today. Second place, good, but could have been even better. And there, Florian Spengler, a very happy man indeed, taking third, the first podium, the best result the team has had, and the Lamborghini surviving, whereas the Grasser cars didn't. What happened to the other car of the Grasser team? We got Engelhardt in the gravel, didn't we? That was the first safety car, and Bortolotti having, of course, had mechanical dramas as yet unspecified early on in the race. So HB Racing, the Austrian team, and Land with its 2 Audis, blocking out the top 3. And the drivers very shortly will make their way up to the podium at the end of this 8th race of this year's ADAC GT Masters competition. And another belting race it was. The Dutch fans damp but dazzled, I think, by some of the racing that they have enjoyed today. And in that, plenty going on all the way through. 57 minutes plus that regulation lap at the end. So very shortly, as I say, we'll get the drivers to that podium. Yesterday there was great delight amongst the Dutch fans because Renger van der Zande took a win. Today it's a different story, as that car ends up 7th after the pit lane speeding offence and 4 safety car periods. But even allowing for that, plenty of great racing was evident, and the result as they came across the line with the number 50 Audi taking 6th place might not yet be the total end of the story. We'll wait and see, because that car being investigated for the, as it is called, unsafe release after the pit stops. So the teams that early on were out on the grid, getting very, very wet indeed, and making sure the cars had the right tyres on. The one exception to that, the Schutz Porsche, ending up in 10th place, having started from the pit lane, coming in to change onto wets after the first formation lap. And now, believe it or not, the sun is shining and it feels quite warm outside. But it has been a wet race for the ADAC GT Masters teams to contend with, not mixed but wet throughout. What comes next on track will be interesting to see their choice of tyre and how the weather conditions affect, because we've got Renault Clio's due to go racing in about half an hour, and then there is the mixed touring car and GT German series, the Spezial Tourenwagen Trophy at the end of the day, by when it could be drier again altogether. So, as the winning drivers are rounded up, there are TV interviews to do, and then they will head towards the podium. The three winning combinations required, of course, plus also there will be the winning team representative as we have a look at some of the super slow-mos, illustrating just how much standing water there was. And the third placed car then for Florian Spengler and Christopher Zanella, the HB Racing run Lamborghini Huracan. For second, Jeffrey Schmidt, who led after the pit stops, and Christopher Hasse for Land, but the sister Monteplast car was the one that came through to win. And Conor De Filippi on that final restart that we had before our final safety car period that brought them to the end, being able to leap through on the inside at the Tarzan hairpin, make that move and go by. And so Conor De Filippi and Christopher Mies, the winners of the 8th race within the ADAC GT Masters this year. And that, would you believe, the first Audi win of the year. It went Porsche, BMW, Porsche, Lamborghini, Corvette. And so now we have our first Audi success of this year's championship. So with the sunshine now breaking through once more, Wolfgang Land strides around the Park Fermé area. The scrutineers will do what they need to do to the cars. The drivers being taken up the steps to the podium. The Zandvoort circuit officials are ready with the flags, the trophies, the anthems queued, ready for the drivers. And very shortly, then they will step forward at the end of another tremendous race within the ADAC GT Masters. It's a shame, of course, it had to end behind the safety car, but we had some great racing along the way, and a result that was in doubt all the way through, with multiple different leaders. So Mirko Bortolotti to begin with, then Maxi Goertz, then we had the safety car period. It put oh so briefly the 20 Mercedes of Nikolai Silvest into the lead. Then it was the number 2 Audi, and then in the end number 1 Audi comes through to score the race victory. So there you can see the podium getting ever more crowded. Drivers are there, and very shortly they will be called forward, ready for the presentations at the end of this second race of the weekend. So we await Sven Bauer, the circuit commentator, who is the public address voice for the whole championship, to call forward the drivers. So the drivers are all there, and once the signal is given, because it all has to be orchestrated for live German television as well, then we can get the drivers forward onto the podium and the celebrations can get underway. So for Conor De Filippi and Christopher Mies, an overdue but very well deserved maiden victory from Jeffrey Schmidt and Christopher Hasse in second place. Third going the way of Florian Spengler and Christopher Zanella, then Robert Renauer and Sven Muller next, ahead of Mathieu Germanet and Michael Ammermuller fifth in the Porsche. Philippe Geipel and Rahal Frey sixth, from Gunnar and van der Zande, then Dennis Marshall and Patrick Niederhauser. But remember, Geipel and Frey under investigation for that unsafe release. Ninth, Mike Ortman and Frank Stippler from Klaus Bachler. And the sole Brit this weekend, Alex McDowell, with Ricky Collard away at the DTM event in Moscow. Non-finishers, Katzberg crash, Bath crash, And then the others, Rogivu, Gravel, Assenheimer, crash, Engelhardt, hit by van der Linde, so crash, and Bortolotti, technical, bringing him into the pit lane. So, Jules Grunot and Daniel Karlvitz are still the top two, with a non-scoring Philippe Eng third, but Christopher Mies and Conor de Filippi now up to fourth, then creeping into contention as far as the championship is concerned, bearing in mind as the drivers now make their way forward onto the podium that Mies and de Filippi came into that race a long way back, 13th in the championship, and yet now they are fourth after a win and bad luck and no score for many of their main rivals. Christopher Mies and Conor de Filippi then for the top step, a rather sanguine Christopher Hasser and Jeffrey Schmidt having led but just not being fast enough, Jeffrey Schmidt, to repel the challenge of Conor de Filippi. And then will be a great reception, I'm sure, for third place Christopher Zanella and Florian Spengler, the HP Racing team scoring its best result yet. It's been a staunch supporter of the ADAC GT Masters competition, but third place, very, very popular result indeed. The Land Racing team represented on the podium. Wolfgang Land watches from down below. And so now, with everybody present and correct, they will be the national anthem for the winning team here. And so, for Land Motorsport, the German national anthem played, and our victorious drivers now await the presentations. The trophies will be brought forward in a moment, and Lars Sauchke from the ADAC hands over the winners' trophies to Christopher Mies and Conor de Filippi. For Land Motorsport, then, it is not just a race win, but it is a 1-2 here at Zandvoort, as the second-place trophies are presented by Eric Wachers, the Chief Operating Officer of the circuit, to Jeffrey Schmidt and Christopher Hasser. Close, but no cigar. Third will go the way, the best result for the team yet, from IBAC's sponsorship, to Florian Spengler and Christopher Zanella, the HB Racing Lamborghini. And then from Certina, the official timing partner of the championship, there is the clock to the winning team, and that will adorn the wall of Land Motorsport at the end of 28 laps of racing here in the dunes, with the sun now shining, everybody being encouraged to hold the trophies aloft for the group photograph, and the champagne is sprayed. Some could not wait. The group photograph goes by the board, and so instead there are some even more bedraggled drivers and officials and dignitaries around the podium. But for Christopher Mies and Conor de Filippi, it is P1 for number one. The reigning champions then, after a lean start to the season, fight back and score race victory on a very wet and treacherous Zandvoort circuit at the end of this second race of the weekend in the ADAC GT Masters. The drivers then now conclude their podium party, and we await the drivers to get themselves together for the group photograph, and then they will be released off back to the teams. But the celebrations then underway here at Zandvoort as the drivers now make their way from the podium. We'll have a look back at the best bits of race 8 in the ADAC GT Masters, and what a race it was. For now, from a damp Zandvoort, from David Addison, thanks for your company. Bye-bye.